the Vice President of Women Lawyers on Guard Action Network, which is a sister organization to Women Lawyers on Guard. And I am the co-host tonight of our salon with Cory Amron, who is the president of Women Lawyers on Guard. I'd especially like to thank Feldblum for working with us and being our special guest this evening. And thank you all for attending.
Hey.
So tonight, we'll tell you about Women Lawyers on Guard's newest initiative, Conversations with Men. We'll provide some context on why we embarked on this initiative and explain the short version of the results of our nationwide survey of sexual harassment in the legal profession. We'll update you on the status of our Conversations with Men initiative. You'll hear from Kai and Erin Reeves, who's the consultant designing the Conversations curriculum. And we'll have you chat in rooms a bit later on for more intimate discussions on the issues at hand. As many of you already know, Women Lawyers on Guard is a network of women and men addressing issues that impact our country today, especially sexual harassment, gender and workplace equity, and women's health and reproductive rights. We advocate, educate, provide programs, and write and sign onto amicus briefs to have an impact in ways that do not duplicate what other organizations are doing.
Okay, so why did we do a nationwide survey? I think some of you have heard about this survey. For those who haven't or those who have forgotten, we're all about doing something that's effective but not duplicating others. And in talking to numerous experts and lawyers in the field, asking about what we should be doing about sexual harassment in the profession, again, that wouldn't duplicate what others are doing, we heard two diametrically opposed perspectives. One were given to us by some lawyers who said, well, you know, that was just a thing of the past. And yeah, we're beyond that now and it's no problem. But then, of course, there were many, many others, not only young lawyers, but older lawyers as well, who would start telling us stories that would make your hair stand on end. And so we decided that we would try to figure out what was, if there was a problem, what was the problem? And we were told that in order to do something different than what the profession was doing now, we needed evidence to drive change. So that's why we did this survey. And as I said, we're going to go through it very quickly. The survey respondents were very representative of the profession, employment settings, demographics, ethnicity, age, geography, etc. And you can access the survey on our website. But if you send me your email, if you send me your real address, I can send you an actual copy of it, which is a lot easier to read. So let me just tell you that, wait, let me just admit Liz. We received about 50 pages of quotes from people who responded to the survey. And they're just absolutely heartbreaking. We're going to present some of those quotes to you because obviously there's nothing like hearing it from people to really understand what's going on. But we urge you to read the comments in the reports because they really tell the story. So here are some. Okay. All right, so we asked the survey respondents, what have you experienced or observed? We're in the room where it happened. The study was a deep dive into what people are actually experiencing. We didn't ask how many people were harassed because that's already been done. There have been a number of studies that show about 50 to 59% of women lawyers experience sexual harassment. So this is all about what people have actually experienced. And here's a word cloud that shows the prevalence of that particular behavior reported by our respondents. This is actually a current graph. If you saw this graph from the incidents reported 30 years ago, offensive jokes would be much smaller and attempted or actual sexual assault would be larger.
What did our research find? We had 6 salient findings. We're going to race through them rather quickly and show you some of the slides and graphs. The first finding, and you'll see the quote that was from the respondents throughout the rest of the presentation. The extent and breadth of misconduct and harassment are insidious and alarming.
So here's a graph of who is doing the harassing. And you will, unfortunately, probably assume that people doing the harassing are partners or supervisors or people with a lot of power. There's some judges, CEOs, et cetera. But other people are also doing harassing. We've got associates, non-attorney staff, and you can see about the clients as well.
Second finding, reporting systems often don't work. Sometimes they're actually harmful.
So here, if you look on the left, you'll see, did the respondents want to report? Did they actually report? So if you look at this darker area, they did not report. They did not want to report. There are reasons for that. This gray area, they did not report, but they wanted to report. Okay, so they didn't report, but they really wanted to report. So all of these folks did not report. If you add them together, that's 86% of current incidents went unreported. Let that sink in a little bit, 86%. Now, if they actually did report, were they supported by their employers? 40% were supported, but 41% were either not supported or they encountered harmful reactions to their report.
Our third finding, most harassers face few to no adverse consequences after reporting, and take a look at what one of our respondents reported.
So these are situations where the person has reported the harassment. Obviously, we can't have consequences unless somebody was reporting it. And you'll see that 50% of the incidents, there were absolutely no consequences to the harasser. And in an additional 20%, the person reporting was not aware of any consequences because their employer didn't tell them what those consequences were. So for all intents and purposes, 70% of the incidents reported seemed that there was absolutely no consequence. So when people wonder, why people don't report, this is pretty clear. Their fears that nothing will happen are pretty well founded.
Fourth finding, the price that women in particular pay and the cost to the profession are considerable. And of course, women aren't the only ones being harassed, but they bear the brunt of the great majority of sexual harassment.
So here's another word cloud. This is the impact on the respondents of the harassment they endured. And 61% had anxiety, 40% feared retaliation, 40% lost self-confidence, 37% lost productivity. And so the difference between this slide and the previous one about the harassers led us to the conclusion that those who are harassed face much harsher consequences than those doing the harassing.
Fifth finding, people at every level are being harassed, and some are very powerful people.
So who is harassed? Again, unfortunately, you will assume that the associates are being harassed, the staff, et cetera. But you'll see also that some very powerful people are being harassed. So partners, supervisors, judges are being harassed. CEOs, general counsels reported being harassed.
Sixth major finding, respondents report compounding factors as you see presented: age, sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, and religion.
So 37% thought that their age, their youth, was a compounding factor. 15% thought that race or ethnicity was an intersectional aspect, and 19% thought that their gender identity or their sexual orientation was an intersectional factor. So the survey respondents identified a number of actions that they thought could better address sexual harassment. Because clearly what we're doing now isn't eradicating the harassment. It may have made the situation a little bit better, but not eradicated it. We are going to list about 9 recommendations, but we're only today going to be talking about 2. Here are some of the other recommendations, though. Identify problem cultures. We need more tailored, effective strategies. We need concrete intervention tools. So for instance, effective bystander intervention training. We need more transparency. People need to know what's happening in the situations when they report. We need more effective individual accountability. And some people are working on the rules of professional conduct to try to make sure that the individuals are held accountable, not just the employers. We need to support work on this issue at an early age. This doesn't come full blown when people enter law school. And we need more options for independent investigations and reporting systems. So here are the 2 that we are going to talk about today. Seek better understanding through frank and nuanced conversations, and develop active male allies in combating sexual harassment. So we've been working on an initiative to address sexual harassment. Wait, let me stop this for a second. That will meld these 2 recommendations into one project, and we're calling it Conversations with Men. The pilot will consist of 5 discrete groups of about 6 to 10 male lawyers each. They will be engaged in 2 sessions of conversations by a professional male facilitator, and they're going to discuss navigating the practice of law in the Me Too era. The goal is to really listen, and to develop active male allies. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to do that a little bit later. So here is a video. Just tell me if you can hear it. In a minute, it will start.
We don't have to live with things that are illegal and abusive. We don't have to live with being raped when we think we're going to a business meeting.
Unpacking the nature of sexual harassment in the legal workplace needs to include men as part of the solution. Intense, professionally facilitated conversations with men are necessary to find better, creative ideas that will foster growth, empowerment, and employment successes of all women lawyers, especially women of color.
Men have to play an active role in eliminating sexual harassment in the workplace. Women Lawyers on Guard's Candid Conversations project will help us be strong allies, ambassadors, and active agents of change.
Only a handful of people are looking at male allies as a solution to gender inequity, even as studies show its effectiveness. None focus on lawyers who are strong change agents. We will measure our effect on participants, employment settings, and the profession at large. Okay, so here's the exciting part. We are, as I mentioned, we've been planning this, we've been working on this for months. And here are the pieces that we have put in place. We constituted an expert planning task force. Chai was on our task force, thank you. So was Allie. They gave us input as to how to structure the conversations. We have a consultant you'll hear from a little bit later, Aaron Reeves, who is giving us what we're calling the curriculum, how the conversations are going to unfold, what's going to be the substance of them. We have a male facilitator who is a clinical professor at the Harvard Law School, who is extremely excited to do this facilitation. We have active ally actions, and this is a piece that you guys will be talking about a little bit later, and I will describe them in a little bit later. Hold on, let me just admit somebody. And what we hope to do is to develop in iterative steps men who know how to and feel comfortable in moving through active ally actions to try to eradicate sexual harassment. We have an advisory council of individuals. We have a roundtable of advisory organizations. You can take a look on our website, but we're so happy to have Allie and the Purple Campaign. We have the Center for Women in Law. We have the National Association of Women Lawyers. We have the National Women's Law Center. We have Thomson Reuters. And we just got the center today. So these are coming in, and we're so thankful for their support.
We also have ALPS, the ALPS insurance.
Oh, insurance, yes, they've been a great partner for us. We actually have our first group of male lawyers. We have about 10 guys, very, very diverse, who are extremely interested in being in this first group, and raised their hand and said yes the moment that we nominated them. This is how we're doing it. We are nominating these folks. And we will talk in a bit about the funding. So we'd like to hear first, you came here to hear Chai, and we're all looking forward to hearing from Chai. Chai has been in the forefront of multiple efforts to improve our workplaces, particularly for traditionally less powerful groups. At the ACLU, she led the team that drafted the Americans with Disabilities Act. She's lobbied on behalf of LGBTQ rights. She's directed a project at Georgetown Law School on workplace flexibility. And last, certainly not least, she was a very influential commissioner of the EEOC from 2010 to 2018, and was the co-author of the seminal report from the EEOC on sexual harassment in the workplace. So Chai, thank you so much for being here and supporting Women Lawyers on Guard and this initiative.
Well, thank you for asking me to be part of this salon cocktail hour. I really think that part of the way to make change is through some of these small groups, and we talk to each other, and then we each talk to someone else, and then the next, and that's really important. The other thing I would say is that one of the things we discovered in terms of doing this report, and I did it with Vicki Lipnick, my Republican colleague, very much bipartisan effort, is that while there are some universal themes in how to protect harassment before it happens, in terms of changing culture, most importantly, every industry, every profession has some of its own unique aspects. So doing something like this, doing a deep dive into law firms, doing a deep dive into ideas that will help within law firms. It might sound like a niche thing. It's actually the way you need to make change often in that profession. And if that keeps happening in other places, that's what can come together to make the sea change. So I just want to applaud you for that. And I want to talk specifically why this initiative of engaging male allies is so important. And it really comes back to culture. It's just all about the culture. I mean, if the culture is such that harassment based on sex, based on any other bases is just not tolerated, that's what's going to make sure that it doesn't happen. It really has to be deeply in the culture. And there are two things to make that work in terms of the culture. One is the role that leaders play, and the other is the role that people across the board in an institution will play. So in terms of leaders, studies are very clear. For leaders to make an impact in terms of change, they have to, number one, have the fire in the belly to want to make change, to not have harassment in their workplaces. They have to have the fire in the belly. They have to articulate their values of not having harassment. Don't underestimate the power of the written and spoken word. And then they have to act in a way that people believe them. Leaders say a lot of things, but employees have to feel that they're being authentic. And that happens when they actually hold people accountable for not living up to those values. So a number of the people in these conversations, this first group of 10 that you've pulled together, as well as the others, there will be people there who are themselves leaders. And I think they will be able to get a sense of how to even increase the fire in their belly. They clearly have something if they're signing up, but also get a good sense of how to articulate that and what it means to hold people accountable. So that's on the leadership level. The other way to affect culture is to have everyone in the workplace, everyone throughout the law firm, feel responsibility for having a culture in which harassment doesn't happen. That's what's key. People have to feel that responsibility, because often people don't like seeing the harassment, right? And they don't get involved for these reasons. One, they either don't feel responsible. It's not my thing. Who knows? Maybe those two had some thing going on with them before. And anyway, it's not my job. Two, they might feel they want to do something, but they really don't know what to do. You know, they just don't know what's appropriate in that particular situation. Or third, they're just afraid if they say, well, that joke is not appropriate, the next time they're going to be the brunt of the harassment and the joke. So they're like, I'm safe now, I'm not going there. And basically, if people are not applauded, not given credit for actually intervening, people won't. Okay, so again, anyone can intervene in different ways, depending on the power structure. There are different things that is possible to do. But you want women to intervene, you want men to intervene. That can be very powerful. So again, I think these types of conversations can enable men to very frankly talk about situations they've seen, how they may have felt uncomfortable, why they didn't intervene, and then get some skills talking to each other about how to intervene in the future. And if they're leaders, how to acknowledge and applaud people who have done that. So in terms of changing culture, I think this initiative is fantastic. And I am looking forward to hearing the curriculum that your consultant has put together, because that's what it's all about. So that's what I have to say about this.
Thank you. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, well, for your encouragement and your enthusiasm about this. And your words of wisdom. We really, really appreciate it. And we should be getting the curriculum in about a week and a half. So
right.
we'll, yeah, keep you posted. Okay, so we are going to hear a little bit from Aaron Reeves, who is our the consultant who is Dr. Reeves, for those who don't know her, is a principal with NextGens Consulting. She has spent 20 years after receiving her PhD and her JD as a leading advisor on diversity, equity, and inclusion and leadership strategies. And we asked her a couple of questions about conversations with men. And Brian, if you would tee that up, we can hear what she has to say. So let me ask you first question. We're going to meld two things together with conversations with men. We're going to have really honest conversations where we listen to what men are talking to us about practicing law in the Me Too era. But we're also going to guide them with what we're calling active ally actions. So my question is, how is this, our focus on men, likely to help women in the effort to eradicate sexual harassment in the workplace?
That's a great question, because a lot of times when we think about helping a group of people that don't have as much power in any organization or in any industry, we forget that the people who can change things in the industry are actually the people in the power, right? People who have the power. So inviting men into this conversation and really listening to them and teaching them how to intervene is what we need to do in order to help women, in order to help women with their, in order to help women be heard, be seen, and be helped when they experience sexual harassment in the workplace, especially in legal workplaces.
Great, great. So how would you compare what we are doing with training and education that's been going on, obviously for a very long time about sexual harassment? Lots and lots of workplaces have put policies in place and trained and et cetera.
Yeah, right, we've had sexual harassment training since, Title VII has been around, and since some of the case law has been settled about what is sexual harassment. There's been training, there's been compliance. And what this study that you all sort of undertook showed is it's made some difference, but it hasn't made a lot of difference. What we saw in the study is pain, right? We saw hurt. We saw women telling you stories about how they couldn't go back to work after certain things happened, about how their stomachs hurt, about how they were anxious, about how they suffered depression. And compliance teaches people what not to do, but it doesn't teach people what to do when they see people doing stuff they're not supposed to do, right? And so compliance is great at proliferating information in an organization that says this is considered sexual harassment, you should not do X, you should not do Y, but it doesn't tell you when you see someone do X, what do you do? And the reality is that women talk about this all the time, right? Women talk about it all the time about what is happening or what they do or how they can support each other. And the compliance, I think, is working to do certain things right. This is really about how do we prevent it? How do we, and how do we intervene? How do we create spaces where men and women, but really men can intervene when they see something else? Because right now, if something happens, what's your recourse? Reporting, right? And then waiting for all the consequences of the reporting, which is why a lot of women don't report. This is about an alternative strategy, which is stop it from happening. And, so that we don't have to go this like painful reporting route. And so getting men into the conversation to do that adds to the compliance. It doesn't substitute it. It doesn't, it's not one is wrong, the other is right, but we need more than just compliance. And I think that's what this is.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Erin in absentia. Thank you, Kai. We couldn't do any of this without all of you. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Hold on a second. Share screen. Okay. Can you see this now? Okay. So what can you do to support this? You know, we've asked you into our virtual living room to talk about this, but also really to get your support. First, we ask that you share this report widely, and you can find it on our website in many ways. You can get to it in a number of ways. If, again, as I mentioned, if you send me your preferred address, I can mail you a copy. It's a lot easier to read, but it's a lot easier to send around in the digital version. The second is we'd ask that you join Women Lawyers on Guard. We don't flood your inbox with emails. We don't charge a membership fee. We're just looking for support, and we only send very important messages periodically. So the third thing has to do, the third and the fourth things have to do specifically with conversations with men. We would like you to nominate male lawyers. In the follow-up email to this salon, we will send you a sample of an email that you can send in which you nominate a male lawyer. We're looking for diversity in all the different ways that you can think about diversity. We will be constituting 4 additional groups to have 2 conversations each. And Corrine, if you could.
Yeah, I was just
Go
going
ahead.
to say,
Sorry.
well, finally and importantly, we'd like you very much to support our Conversations with Men initiative with a generous donation. In order to complete the pilot phase of the initiative, we will need $38,500. We already have $20,000, so more than half of that amount is already raised. Our board, you should know, is 100% behind this project. Cory and I have already given $5,000 each to Conversations with Men and $10,000 each to the organization, which is, as you know, a 501c3 charitable organization. We've applied for 4 grants, particularly to cover a part-time project director so that Cory and I could attend to other things needed for Women Lawyers on Guard, but we haven't yet found the sweet spot foundation. We're continuing to apply for grants, of course, but we do have a start date, as mentioned before, for the first conversation group in September. So we need additional funding now. Here's how you can help. We know it's a big ask, but
Corrine, can I just clarify one thing? And that is the $38,500 that we are looking for does not include the part-time staff person. We're looking for a grant for that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we know it's a big ask, but we are looking for funding of $5,000 to $1,000 from individuals from the community of women leaders in the law, such as yourself. We'll acknowledge your contributions with many thanks on our website as follows: bronze level, $1,000, silver level, $2,500, and gold level, $5,000. Cory and I would be very happy to talk further with any of you, but we really hope that you can make this investment in a project that so many experts are excited about. They see that this can move the needle by developing active male allies to help ensure that the appalling stories that you will read in the Still Broken report are really a thing of the past. You can donate through our website, but PayPal takes a nice chunk of that, and we need every penny. So a check sent to our address, which you see on the slide before you, would be most appreciated.